Alright, so as we move into the final stretch of tonight's show or today's show, whenever you're listening, I like to spend a few minutes reflecting on a theme that quietly connected almost everything we've discussed on this live stream. Whether we were talking about Rick Astley walking away from fame, cutting crew and the dreams that did or didn't come true, the Gen X reflection video, or tonight's psychological tool about regret, the same question kept appearing in different forms. What do we do with our past? Not our past as a generation or as a society, not even as a music fans, but our own personal past. I think that's a question many people become increasingly interested in as they get older. Because when we are young, the future occupies most of our attention. We think about what we are going to become, where we are going, what we'll achieve, what we'll meet, who will meet, what life will look like 10 years from now. But eventually something changes. You reach an age where there are now more memories behind you than there were before. And naturally you begin looking back. And one thing I've noticed over the years is that many people mentally become editors of their own lives. They start rewriting the story, reinterpreting everything through the lens of today's knowledge. And suddenly every mistake feels obvious. Every warning sign seems visible. Every wrong decision seems avoidable. And yet, that's not how life actually unfolds. what, when we make decisions, we do so with incomplete information. We don't know how relationships will end. We don't know which opportunities will matter. We don't know which failures will eventually become useful. We simply move forward with the awareness available at that time. And one thing social media has made worse is the illusion that other people somehow got everything right. You see the finished chapter, the successful business, the happy family, the retirement photo, the vacation, the fancy vacation pictures, the career achievement. But you rarely see the uncertainty, the mistakes, the failed attempts, the years of confusion, or the nights spent wondering if things would ever work out. And that's one reason comparison becomes so dangerous. Because you are comparing your full story to somebody else's highlight reel from Instagram or whatever. And one thing I appreciate about so much music uh, from many, I mean um, from music from the 80s and 90s, is that I wanted to say that from many artists and bands from the 80s and 90s, is that many artists weren't afraid to admit uncertainty. They wrote songs about regret, about heartbreak, about starting over, uh, feeling lost, about trying again many times, about searching for meaning. And perhaps that's one reason these songs still resonate, because they remind us that confusion is not failure, it's often part of the process. So, another idea from tonight's video that really stayed with me is the notion that starting over later in life is not starting from zero. And I think many people underestimate that. Experience is, is not a consolation prize, it's an asset. Think about it. A 20-year-old may have more years ahead, but a 50-year-old often has better judgment, better perspective, better emotional regulation, and a much clearer understanding of what actually matters. And those things have enormous value, sometimes more value than people realize. And this also connects directly with what we've talked about on this channel from the very beginning. The concept I want to introduce, that is positive nostalgia or conscious nostalgia. Because positive nostalgia is not about wishing we could move backwards to the past. The goal is not to relive 1985 or 1991 or 1997. The goal is to bring something useful forward. A lesson, an attitude, a memory, a perspective, a reminder, something that helps us navigate today a little more wisely. And perhaps that's where tonight's message ultimately leads, because many people spend years focused on the chapter that went wrong, the relationship that ended, the opportunity they missed, the dream that didn't happen. But life keeps writing new chapters. And sometimes we are so busy rereading one difficult page that we forget the book is still being written. I think that's one reason songs like Shattered Dreams by Johnny Hates Jazz and These Are the Days of Our Lives by Queen work so beautifully together. One acknowledges the disappointment. The other song gently reminds us that life is still happening. Not someday, not when everything is fixed perfectly, or when the past finally makes perfect sense, but it's happening now. So if there is one idea I like to leave you with, is this one. Your past may explain you, but it doesn't have to imprison you. The mistakes matter, the lessons matter, the memories, the wisdom matters, but none of those things get the final word. Because as long as you're still here, another chapter remains possible. Another friendship, another project, another dream or adventure, another opportunity to become a slightly wiser version of yourself. And perhaps that's one of the most hopeful things about life. The story is not finished yet. Alright, everyone, that's been tonight's editorial. And after the break, we'll slowly begin wrapping up tonight's journey through the 80s and 90s here on Back to the Present. I'm coming back in 1 second.